Good evening. This is the regular meeting of the Board of Commissioners, St. Charles Parish Housing Authority, Tuesday, October 29th, 2024. The time is now 6 p.m. I call the meeting to order. Having a quorum of the board, this meeting is now in order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, at this time we open for public comment for any agenda items. If there's anyone that wishes to come forward and speak, you may do so now. Seeing no one here, public comment is now closed. Review and approval of agenda. Any board discussion?
I'm seeing it for the first time.
All right, Commissioner Woods.
Mr. Chair, I make a move that we accept the agenda as presented.
All right, Commissioner Woods has moved to accept the agenda as presented. Do we have a second? Ms. Diggs?
A second.
We have a second by Ms. Diggs to accept the agenda as submitted. You may cast your votes. Are we able to? All in favor of accepting the agenda as written?
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
All right, that carries. Next agenda item is our review and approval of board meeting minutes from September 24th, 2024. Any board discussion? Commissioner Woods.
Mr. Chair, I move that we accept the board minutes September 24, 24 as presented.
All right, Commissioner Woods has made a motion to accept the minutes from our board meeting 2024, September 24, 2024. Do we have a second?
I second.
All right, Ms. Diggs has seconded. You may cast your vote.
Yeah, can we vote on this thing?
Mm-hmm. Should now.
Okay.
Yep, there we go. All right, that passes. And now to you, Mr. Jackson, our Executive Director's report.
We do have the review and acceptance of the
The audit.
Yes.
Okay. Apologize. Next agenda item is review and acceptance of the fiscal year 2022 to 2023 A133 audit. Board discussion. Commissioner Woods.
Mr. Chair, I will definitely approve to just accept the audit as presented. But I am hoping sometime in the near future we can get together as a board and have a discussion about the findings, and if not our current legislative auditor, I think we're somewhat in the process of possibly hiring somebody new in, that even if it was a timing when someone new came in, that we could have a discussion of just what that audit process is.
Okay. All right, Mr. Woods has moved to accept the audit as presented, and he has also made the request that sometime in the near future, at one of our meetings, that we have a presentation either by the current auditor or whoever we hire to discuss the audit process with the board. So we will note that for the record, and we're looking for a second for the acceptance of the audit. Stiggs, will you second? All right. And Ms. Stiggs has seconded. You can cast your vote. Thank y'all.
And right now, we're just accepting it,
Okay.
and we're not approving or agreeing on anything, just that we received it. You want to press the second?
Something's going on with that.
You said we did that.
Try it now.
Okay,
Okay. Is there a second?
there we
Okay,
go.
We'll work it out. We'll figure it out.
And, did the motion to vote come up? I mean, the vote action?
Yeah.
Looks like it.
There we go.
Oh,
There you
there
go.
we go.
All right, that passes. Review and acceptance of the A133 audit accepted into the record. All right, and Mr. Jackson, now you can do your executive director's report.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you, Chairman Jay. Before I go into the specific program reports, I just wanted to make you aware of a financial document that I included in this month's board report in the financial section. That would be the ELOC's balance sheet. We are including this to ensure that the Commissioners have a monthly update on the balances within our operating and our capital funds. This is the sheet that's right in the financial section of your packet. We are in the process of finalizing a plan to send to local HUD so that they can approve reimbursements that we will be requesting for funding years 2021 through, or fiscal years 2021 through 2023. We anticipate sending that to HUD on tomorrow. We are submitting reimbursement for 2024 since that fiscal year just ended. We haven't had any issues with that yet. But the plan, as always, per operational compliance with HUD regulations, is to voucher monthly to ensure fiscal health and operational compliance with HUD. Also, I would like to confirm that we did submit timely our agency's 424 and operating fund grant requests for 2025. And I'd like to thank Ms. Yolanda, who's worked on that, as well as 76 Strategies. Again, we anticipate a number of financial reports for the November meeting that will be going back to October 2023. 76 Strategies is currently working on that, as well as the unaudited FDS submission, which will be submitted prior to the end of November. And we have received all indications from 76 that the report and the reports for the board meeting, as well as the submission of the unaudited financials, will be timely, which ultimately, again, would help us to improve our scores with HUD and compliance in general. And included in your packet, we've included the bank statements for the month of September 2024. We have also advertised our financial director position, or a finance director position, and we have received a number of qualified applicants. We are going to be closing that advertisement down at the beginning of next week so that we can begin to pare down those applications for interview, and I will definitely keep the board informed on that process throughout the month. Lastly, we have received a template from 76 Strategies for prorations of salaries and benefits of staff to ensure that costs are properly allocated So you will, in the coming months, see fluctuations in both balances, with low rent probably going up considerably and HCV coming down month to month, as salaries and benefits have traditionally been paid out of the low rent account. But this will be done to ensure that the HCV admin funds are transferred to the low rent account based on the percentage of the work done by the staff in their respective programs. So next up, I will go through the low rent report. That'll be the next section in your board packets. For the month ending September 30th, we have leased up 46 units at our boutique property. Between the boutique property, the Hanville property, and the DeZalman's property, we have 70 units on mod, and we have 13 that are currently vacant. We collected rent in the amount of $6,831 in money orders. We're working to reconcile the number for the online, that number with the online rent payments that were collected, and we will provide the board with a complete rent collection figure for September 2024 on the October 2024 report. We mailed out 45 letters for the month of September, and those included 10 letters for the one-bedroom units, 15 letters for the two-bedroom units, and 20 letters for the three-bedroom units. And we completed a total of 3 maintenance work orders for the month of September. We also, as a part of the packet going forward, we will be including a number of different unit maintenance scope documents. So prior to our Inspire inspections, we did a master inspection, if you will, and went through the entire property to document any issues that needed to be addressed. We have completed the vast majority of those. The ones that are in yellow in that first set of spreadsheets are the ones that we're still working to complete. We have, for a number of these, authorized the work to be done by an outside vendor. And in the next set of spreadsheets that we have, or the next spreadsheet that I have for you in that part of the low rent report, for the vacant units, I've included a specific, as detailed as we possibly can, scope, as well as an estimated date of completion for move-in readiness. So just because a lot of these units, for whatever reason, have been vacant, some a month or two, some years, unfortunately. So we're going to be working to get these back online, and I've stressed to the team that, and I appreciate their work in working to prepare this, to help prepare this scope. But we have to make sure that we have our occupancy as high as we can possibly get it, considering the challenges that we face in this parish in terms of, as it relates to affordable housing, and the fact that we have a waiting list of residents who would be interested in occupying the units. So I have, I would like to also confirm that we did receive a final score. I know I've been in the last 2 meetings indicating that we had a preliminary score of 77 for our Inspire inspection, but we did get confirmation, I believe 2 Saturdays ago, that the score was final. It is a 77, so we did pass our Inspire inspection that was conducted a couple of months ago. And I would like to thank, just as I have before, the staff and all their hard work in getting the units to where they needed to be, and also the board for your support and your action on a number of items that were needed to be done to get the units to where they are. And we know 77 is passing, but it is not where we ultimately want to be. We want to be in a high performer area and in a high performer range. So that's definitely going to be the goal moving forward. And I also wanted to mention that as a part of our maintenance strategy, we will be implementing quarterly inspections, a quarterly inspection schedule for our low-rent property beginning next year. A lot of what, if you have a master spreadsheet, sometimes some of those things could be issues that came up recently, but sometimes those could be deferred maintenance issues. So we want to make sure that as best we can, we eliminate a lot of the deferred maintenance and, things happen from time to time, address them as they come up. The next report that I have is the HCV report. For the month ending September 30th, that is, we've had 11 port outs searching for housing, 5 port outs leased up, 15 port ins leased up. We've had 1 port in searching for housing. We've had 2 EOPs effective 9/30/2024. For the month of September 30th, ending September 30th, we have made HCV payments in the amount of $256,795.52, and we've had income in the amount of $290,682.72. We are still currently under the umbrella of the shortfall prevention team for HCV, so we still have not been able to issue new vouchers. We have been submitting and sending in information as they requested, but we've not gotten an update from that team as it relates to our status. We did get a preliminary projection from 76 that we are projected not to have a shortfall by year end, but based on what we take in for HCV in terms of admin fees and HAP, and based on what we pay out, if you could see here, we have it's a difference of $33,000 in the favorables between what we get as income and also what we make as payments. So, and that's kind of the trend that that Paul and his team at 76 saw as well. So we're waiting to hear an update from the shortfall prevention team on that. And as soon as we get that, we'll definitely let the board know. We had 6 voucher holders in-house searching for housing, 1 new admission leased up from the waiting list, and we have 4 new landlords that are now participating in the program, and as a total, 246 vouchers leased up with 15 searching. I did also include
those searching. Is that our folks searching, or that's our port ins?
It could be a mixture of both. Yeah, it could be a mixture of both.
Okay,
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
I did include the VMS report for August that was absent from the last board meeting packet, and also the VMS report for September. We did submit both timely. It was, unfortunately for the August report, the timing of the September meeting and the actual report submission, it was just too close compared to when I wanted to make sure you all had your packets. But that was done. I do have a couple of more things. I'm sorry. I'll be as quick as I can. As an FYI, and as it relates to our holiday calendar, our offices will be closed on November 5th, which is Election Day, and that's accordance with and following the state civil service holiday calendar. It is a state holiday, and I just wanted to make sure that you all were aware of it. It wasn't on our list of holidays that I saw, so wanted to make sure the board was aware, and of course we will provide notice to the public on our website and on our door. And we encourage you and everyone who is registered to please exercise your right to vote. And finally, oh, you got your sticker. There you go, Commissioner Woods. And finally, as for previously approved RFP advertisements, just wanted to give you an update. We did receive 1 submission for the fencing work to be done at Booty. So you will have that selection resolution for your review and approval at next month's meeting. It was 1 vendor, so did not have to be scored. So I will make sure that that's on the agenda for the November meeting. The RFP for the boarding up of the Hamville property is closing next Friday, November 8th, and we're working to refine the scope for the burned unit at the Booty property, so that will be posted as soon as possible on the Housing Agency Marketplace portal our website and the Herald Guide. And I did mention this previously, but as Ms. Diggs is a new member of the board, wanted to make sure she was aware. We are now, and this could also address one of the issues that Mr. Estes included in his audit. We are now utilizing the Housing Agency Marketplace, which is an e-procurement system, which allows prospective vendors to register and also to receive solicitations based on the commodity code. So if they're a fencer or they do metal work, they would get the fencing RFP. If we have a number of different RFPs on the agenda tonight for consideration. Anybody who was indicated that that is their specialty, they would get that information not just locally, but nationwide as well. So we are very excited about what that has meant for not only our ability to be efficient in our procurement process, but also make sure that we maintain and retain all of our documentation, because they have to submit their the submission to, or the response to the solicitation through the portal. And if we did have a situation where there were multiple vendors, it would allow us to score it on there as well. So just making sure that we have all of our ducks in a row in terms of documentation, and that we're following the public bid law. So wanted to make sure everybody was aware of that, and that's a tool that we've been using, and that's a part of whatever corrective action plan we would be indicating as it relates to the audit as well. So that does conclude my report. Does anyone have any questions?
I don't, let's do it right.
Mr. Woods?
I don't really have a question, but I would just like to thank you and your staff just for the presentation and the documentation on the maintenance, the plan to take corrective actions on build units that need repair. So not only that, now we can say that you have a mechanism for tracking and stuff. We do also. So I just really appreciate that information.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Any additional questions from the board? All right, before we move on, we have a lot of RFPs before us this evening. Thank you, Mr. Jackson, for your report. I would like to just take a moment and introduce our newest board member, Ms. Marilyn Diggs. We thank you for your service and welcome to the board. She is replacing Marilyn Jackson's seat on the board. And so we thank Ms. Jackson for her service to the board and to the Housing Authority this evening as well. So thank y'all both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Both of you.
Thank you.
All right, resolutions. Let's see. Our first resolution before us this evening is 2410-2901, approving and adopting a resolution for advertisement of a request for proposals to select a qualified and responsive vendor to provide lawn services to the 3 St. Charles Parish Housing Authority properties. This time we open for public comment. Seeing no one present, public comment for Resolution 2410-2901 is closed. Do we have any board discussion? All right. I'll read the resolution into the record. Resolution 2410-2901, a resolution of the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority Board of Commissioners approving and adopting resolutions to advertise an RFP to select a qualified and responsive vendor to provide lawn care services at all 3 St. Charles Parish Housing Authority public housing properties. The undersigned, being the duly elected Secretary of St. Charles Parish Housing Authority, hereby certifies by written consent. Following resolution was duly adopted, whereas St. Charles Parish Housing Authority is a public housing agency established pursuant to Louisiana law, whereas the mission of the authority is to promote adequate and affordable housing, economic opportunity, and a suitable living environment free from discrimination, and whereas the authority must from time to time let an advertisement of a request for proposal or RFP to select a qualified and responsive vendor to complete work on behalf of the authority, and whereas the authority, in line with its procurement policy, authorizes the executive director or their designee to let on advertisement of an RFP to allow the Board of Commissioners to select qualified and responsive vendor to provide lawn care services at all 3 St. Charles Parish Housing Authority public housing properties. Do we have a motion from the board? Commissioner Woods.
Mr. Chair, I move that we accept Resolution 24-10-29-01, providing for lawn care services at our 3 Parish Housing Authority properties.
All right, Commissioner Woods has moved to approve Resolution 24-10-2901 in relation to RFP for lawn care. Do we have a second from the board?
A second.
Ms. Diggs has seconded. Go ahead and cast your vote. All right, that passes. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the proposed resolution to advertise an RFP to select a qualified and responsive vendor to provide lawn care services at all 3 St. Charles Parish Housing Authority public housing properties is hereby approved and adopted for implementation. Next resolution before us this evening is 24-10-2902. We now open for public comment. Seeing no one present, public comment is now closed. 24-10-2902, approving and adopting a resolution for the advertisement of a request for proposals to select a qualified and responsive vendor to provide on-call legal services to St. Charles Parish Housing Authority. A resolution of the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority Board of Commissioners approving and adopting a resolution to advertise an RFP to select a qualified and responsive vendor to provide on-call legal services to St. Charles Parish Housing Authority. Undersigned, being the duly elected Secretary of St. Charles Parish Housing Authority, hereby certifies that by written consent, following resolution was adopted, whereas the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority is a public housing agency established pursuant to Louisiana law, whereas the mission of the authority is to provide adequate and affordable housing, economic opportunity, and a suitable living environment free from discrimination, and whereas the authority must from time to time let an advertisement of a request for proposal, RFP, to select a qualified and responsive vendor to complete work on behalf of the authority, and whereas the authority, in line with its procurement policy, authorizes the executive director or their designee to let an advertisement of an RFP to allow the Board of Commissioners to select a qualified and responsive vendor to provide on-call legal services to St. Charles Parish Housing Authority. Do we have any board discussion? Any motions from the board?
Doesn't have to be me all the time.
Commissioner Woods.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve Resolution 24-10-29-02, providing for responsive vendors to provide on-call legal services to the Parish Housing Authority.
All right, Commissioner Woods has made move to approve Resolution 24-10-2902 to provide on-call legal services to St. Charles Parish Housing Authority. Do we have a second?
Yes, I second.
All right, thank you, Ms. Diggs. We have a second from Ms. Diggs. Please cast your vote. All right, that passes unanimously. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the proposed resolution to advertise an RFP to select qualified and responsive vendor to provide on-call legal services to St. Charles Parish Housing Authority is hereby approved and adopted for implementation.
All right.
Next resolution before us is 24-10-2903, approving and adopting a resolution for the advertisement of a request for proposal to select qualified and responsive vendor to provide on-call electrical services to St. Charles Parish Housing Authority. We now open for public comment. Seeing no one present, public comment is now closed. Resolution 24-10-2903, a resolution of St. Charles Parish Housing Authority Board of Commissioners approving and adopting a resolution to advertise an RFP to select qualified and responsive vendor to provide on-call electrical services to the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority. The undersigned, being the duly elected Secretary of St. Charles Parish Housing Authority, hereby certifies that by written consent, following resolution being adopted, whereas St. Charles Parish Housing Authority is a public housing agency established pursuant to Louisiana law, whereas the mission of the authority is to promote adequate and affordable housing, economic opportunity, a suitable living environment free from discrimination, and whereas the authority must from time to time let an advertisement of a request for proposal or RFP to select qualified and responsive vendor to complete work on behalf of the authority, and whereas the authority, in line with its procurement policy, authorizes the executive director or their designee to let an advertisement of an RFP to allow the Board of Commissioners to select qualified and responsive vendor to provide on-call electrical services to St. Charles Parish Housing Authority. Do we have any board discussion or any motions from the board?
I'll make a motion.
Ms. Diggs?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that,
Motion. There you go.
I make a motion that resolution 2410-2903, approve and adopt a resolution to advertise an RFP to select a qualified and responsive vendor to provide on-call electrical service to the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority.
All right, thank you, Ms. Diggs. Ms. Diggs has made a motion to accept Resolution 2410-2903, approving and adopting a resolution to advertise an RFP to select qualified and responsive vendor to provide on-call electrical services to the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority. That has been seconded by Commissioner Woods. You may cast your vote. All right, that passes. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the proposed resolution to advertise an RFP to select a qualified and responsive vendor to provide on-call electrical services to St. Charles Parish Housing Authority is hereby approved and adopted for implementation. Okay, our next resolution before us this evening is 2410-2904, approving and adopting a resolution for the advertisement of a request for proposal to select a qualified and responsive vendor to provide on-call plumbing services to St. Charles Parish Housing Authority. Public hearing is now open. Seeing no one present, public hearing is closed. Resolution 2410-2904, a resolution of the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority Board of Commissioners approving and adopting a resolution to advertise an RFP to select a qualified and responsive vendor to provide on-call plumbing services to the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority. The undersigned, being duly elected Secretary of the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority, hereby certifies that by written consent the following resolution being adopted, whereas St. Charles Parish Housing Authority is a public housing agency established pursuant to Louisiana law, and whereas the mission of the authority is to promote adequate and affordable housing, economic opportunity, and a suitable living environment free from discrimination, and whereas the authority must from time to time let an advertisement of a request for proposal or RFP to select a qualified and responsive vendor to complete work on behalf of the authority, and whereas the authority, in line with its procurement policy, authorizes executive director or their designee to let an advertisement of an RFP to allow the Board of Commissioners to select a qualified and responsive vendor to provide on-call plumbing services to St. Charles Parish Housing Authority. We have discussion or a motion from the board. Commissioner Woods?
Mr. Chair, I move that we adopt Resolution 24-10-29-04, approving and adopting a resolution to advertise RFP to select a qualified vendor for plumbing services to the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority.
Thank you, Mr. Woods. Mr. Woods has made a motion to accept Resolution 2410-2904, approving and adopting a resolution to advertise an RFP to select qualified and responsive vendor to provide on-call plumbing services to the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority. Do we have a second?
Mr. Chair, I second.
Ms. Diggs has seconded. Please cast your votes. That passes. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the proposed resolution to advertise an RFP to select a qualified and responsive vendor to provide on-call plumbing services to St. Charles Parish Housing Authority is hereby approved and adopted for implementation. Next resolution this evening is 2410-2905, approving and adopting a resolution for the 2024-2025 St. Charles Parish Housing Authority Board of Commissioners meeting calendar. Public hearing is now open. Seeing no one present, public hearing is closed. Resolution 2410-2905 is a resolution of the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority Board of Commissioners approving and adopting resolution for the 2024-2025 St. Charles Parish Housing Authority Board of Commissioners meeting calendar. The undersigned, being the duly elected secretary of the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority, hereby certifies that by written consent, the following resolution was duly adopted, whereas the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority is a public housing agency established pursuant to Louisiana law, and whereas the mission of the authority is to promote adequate and affordable housing, economic opportunity, and a suitable living environment free from discrimination, whereas the authority and its Board of Commissioners per Louisiana Revised Statute 4219 are required to annually create, approve, and post its meeting calendar for the purposes of properly noticing its regular annual public meeting calendar, and whereas the authority, in line with Revised Statute 4219, wishes to approve and adopt the calendar attached to this resolution for the remainder of 2024 and the 2025 calendar year. Is there any board discussion? Mr. Woods.
Yes, just a quick question. Have we been, and I think it's been the 4th, have we been meeting the 4th Tuesday of the month, or has it been consistently the last Tuesday of the month? I think it's been the 4th.
So according to the bylaws, it is the 4th Tuesday of the month.
Okay.
That is correct.
Then I suggest we stick with the bylaws.
Yes.
Okay, and so we're approving this into 2025 also. The only thing I would hope we would adjust on our calendars in December, we have a meeting scheduled for the 23rd of December in 2025.
Yeah, I haven't read yet.
Yeah. So I guess my thing was, could that be up because of the holidays, 23rd, people are going to be doing whatever you're doing at Christmas time. So maybe we might want to meet a week prior to the 23rd.
Okay.
I do also, in line with the bylaws, there were, the meeting in April was scheduled for the 5th Tuesday. The meeting in July was scheduled for the 5th Tuesday.
Okay.
And the meeting in September was scheduled for the 5th Tuesday. So if we scheduled them on the 4th Tuesday, it would be April 22nd, July 22nd, and September 23rd, and December 16th, which would be the change.
Okay. Sounds good. Very good.
And what was the December date?
16th.
All right. So, Mr. Woods, based on that fact, would you like to make a motion to amend the calendar that, as just stipulated?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we amend the calendar that was presented to us to the dates that the executive director just mentioned.
All right. We have a motion from Commissioner Woods to amend the calendar before us this evening, amending the April date to April 22nd, the July date to July 22nd, the September date to September 23rd, and the December date to December 16th. Do we have a second?
Yes, I second.
All right, Ms. Diggs has seconded. Cast your votes.
I'm sure.
All right, that passes. Now therefore be it resolved that the proposed resolution to approve and adopt the 2024-2025 St. Charles Parish Housing Authority Board of Commissioners meeting calendar with amendments is hereby approved and adopted for implementation.
I'm sure you're going to get that updated
Yes.
schedule to us.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I didn't document any of that.
All right. Good. The next agenda item is corrective action plan update, recovery plan update. Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Commissioner Jay and Commissioners. In your board packet and other matters did include the correspondence as required by our recovery plan to the local HUD field office, Ms. Gibbs, specifically as the director, to provide an update as it relates to a number of areas that are noted in our recovery plan as points of emphasis and have benchmarks that we have to meet according to not according to, rather, but in the letter that we provided to HUD, we indicated that we did submit both our 2023 unaudited and audited submissions. We did meet our occupancy benchmark of 55%. We met it at 77% as at the end, at the close of September 2024. And we also did provide them with the indication or the information as it relates to us getting the 77 preliminary score on our Inspire inspection as it relates to the requirement to improve the physical condition of dwelling units. Part of the recovery agreement required that we improve our score incrementally, but we did very well, much more than what was projected in the recovery agreement. So we do anticipate an increase in the pass metric of the FOS score. And we also did take steps as it relates to improving our financial performance by securing a new fee accountant firm. And we indicated that we did submit our information to 76 Strategies to make sure that we were on track for the unaudited submission before or on the 60-day post-close of the fiscal year deadline, which would allow us to meet our financial performance benchmarks as required by our recovery agreement and making sure that our submissions were timely. And also, we did just provide an update as it relates to our repositioning of our public housing, the conversion, which we're about to talk about just in a moment. We wanted to make sure that because that was a part of the recovery agreement, that we have to ultimately convert and reposition our public housing units. That HUD themselves made the decision to not allow our streamlined voluntary conversion application to go forward, and that we would pivot to another repositioning strategy. In speaking with local HUD, they did indicate that because of this change, we would have the ability to amend our recovery agreement ultimately with the process for repositioning that the board ultimately selects. So wanted to assure them that we are taking the necessary steps to continue the process of repositioning our public housing properties. So this letter was submitted as an update to our recovery agreement, and it was submitted timely. Per our recovery agreement, we have to submit one of these every 90 days until the end of that agreement. So, and they did accept it, and we have not heard anything about it or had any questions as follow-up. So that concludes my update.
Okay.
Does anyone have any questions?
I do have a question, Mr. Jackson. Based on our new FAST score that we just received, what is the difference from previous year? I know it was a remarkable improvement, but do you know what the previous score was?
Can you turn on the mic?
I believe it was a 19.
Okay. So, vast improvement.
Yes.
All right.
What's that score now?
77.
Okay, got it.
And for your awareness, 60 is failing. So anything above a 60, and it's a pass between, I think, 80 and 100 and 60 and 80. Whatever, if you score in those areas, it indicates when they come back and re-inspect. So I think between 80 and 100, it's like every 2 years, or 3 years rather, and then 60 and 80 is every 2. So I will say we probably will get re-inspected.
Okay.
But you know, we did pass.
Yeah, we are, or at least we,
And it was a market improvement.
yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And that does conclude my update. Thank you.
All right, any additional questions? Mr. Woods?
No, I was just gonna ask, you were still gonna mention something about that conversion, is that still, or?
Yeah, that's next agenda
Okay,
item.
all right.
Uh-huh. All right, so our next agenda item is the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority Conversion Plan discussion. I'll again hand this back to Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Chairman Jay and Commissioners. As previously mentioned, SCPHA was notified in September that the streamlined voluntary conversion application that we submitted was not approved, and that we would have to, it was not denied either, but it was not approved, and that we would have to pivot to another repositioning application, specifically the RAD Section 18 conversion, the RAD Section 18 blend conversion repositioning strategy. While this was a blow to all of us here, all of our community and government stakeholders, and to our residents that were anticipating conversion for the Booty, Hanville, and Des Allemands properties, we understand that HUD is working, just in the conversations that we've had with them since, working to make the pivot and the timeline for approval as streamlined as possible. The RAD Section 18 blend conversion, and just for Commissioner Diggs' awareness, housing authorities are allowed to reposition or convert their public housing stock for a number of reasons. Disrepair, issues with deferred maintenance, financial issues, resident feedback, and the like. So the RAD Section 18 blend conversion, as detailed in your packet and other pertinent HUD guidance and information that I've sent to you, is a process that would allow the housing authority to convert and reposition its properties from traditional public housing with minimal, which has a minimal subsidy attached to it, for property upkeep, to project-based vouchers with higher contract rents from HUD for each. And while our residents backed our SVC plan, the RAD Section 18 conversion plan does include more resident protections as it relates to their right to return, and also to advocate for their interests as a formalized RAB, or Resident Advisory Board. Also, our current public housing funds and reserves can be used to support the conversion, and HUD does underwrite the project to ensure its viability. As a way forward, the local HUD field office has indicated in writing that SCPHA no longer can proceed with its streamlined voluntary conversion application and the process, the SVC process, and they sent that to me in an email on yesterday. And after many discussions and questions over the past 2 months, they've instructed that we proceed as follows: that the board needs to determine which repositioning strategy they wish to pursue in lieu of the streamlined voluntary conversion, that the board needs to pass a resolution withdrawing the streamlined voluntary conversion application, and pass a resolution indicating the chosen option for repositioning, sending both to the SAC with a written request to remove our current SVC application in the PIC system and change to the chosen option. Also, the PHA plan needs to be revised to indicate a general demo disposition language, repositioning language, because in our current PHA plan, we specifically indicate streamlined voluntary conversion, and because of that change, they would consider that a significant change. So we need to revise our public housing plan, and then begin work on a new physical needs assessment with Standard. And after speaking with our developer partner, Standard Enterprises, they've indicated that with the streamlined voluntary conversion process being effectively canceled after so much time, work, energy, and investment, that the project feasibility has taken a hit from a financing perspective. There was a financing gap indicated with the streamlined voluntary conversion, but it was a minimal one that was planned for. Because the rents are different for streamlined voluntary conversions than they are for RAD with RAD being 80/20. That financing gap has now ballooned based on projections to currently at the least $4.26 million to the most extreme being $6.3 million, depending on whether 110% or 120% fair market rents can be used. There is a hope that, as HUD has indicated, that the RAD rents will rise to 90/10, that the gap will be lessened, but we do await the PIH notice on that to get a more accurate understanding of the financing gap so that Standard can plug that information into its modeling. The pivot will require, regardless of whether it's 80/20 or 90/10, it will require a variety of strategies and asks to secure the needed financing to cover the gap. While this was not an action item on the agenda, as we're still waiting guidance from HUD on the 90/10 RAD rents, and to allow commissioners to review the multitude of information that has been provided to make the best decision on and how to proceed, we would need the commissioners to call a special meeting before our next regularly scheduled meeting in November to consider the resolutions that HUD has asked us to consider. Does anyone have any questions based on that update that I just provided?
My question would be, and I know there's a lot to it, but what are the basic differences between the two models that are before us to consider?
So are you talking about the streamlined voluntary conversion versus the RAD Section 18? So the biggest difference is the rents and the process. There was the piece that created the biggest issue for the process was the cost analysis. Now, that's not necessarily mandated, it wasn't mandated for small PHAs, which is what caused the lawsuit that I believe HUD ultimately lost. And now, because of that decision, that is what created the ripple effect with us having to pivot to another conversion plan. But the biggest difference is the rents, because I think the projection, and I thought I had it in front of me, but I believe the projection initially for the gap was, I believe, 2.3 million, and that was because it was the rents were different.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the question before the board, and what we will need a special meeting for, is deciding which program we're doing. I mean, I'm assuming we're going with RAD. I mean, is there different subsects of RAD that we have to decide from, or is there different options other than RAD that we're looking at? It hasn't been communicated to us that there are other alternatives outside of RAD Section 18. What HUD did indicate because we're not the only housing authority that's dealing with this issue. Right.
They indicated that as a pivot option, an alternative, because they have set up, I'm assuming, and I'm not 100% certain on this, because there's been, between September and now, we've had multiple conversations with multiple people, and in some instances, they've said different things. But to answer your question, they are setting up almost like a task force to work with those agencies that had pending streamlined voluntary conversion applications so that they can get across the finish line quicker. Usually, a process like this would take at a minimum 18 months. I think they were saying something to the effect of a year delay so that the application could be withdrawn, resubmitted, and we have, all of the due diligence that we have to do on our end to make sure that we cross our T's, dot our I's, and our lowercase j's.
Okay. All right. That being said, if we create a plan moving forward, and then obviously we have to figure out what process we need to do to meet the budget shortfall, is Standard still willing to move forward with us in the process?
To answer your question, with the 80/20 rents, we'd have to be very aggressive in securing the gap shortfall. With the 90-10 rents, they did indicate that they could probably start some of their due diligence on their end once the application is approved without that gap being filled 100%. So I guess to answer your question, the PIH notice from HUD about the 90-10 rent will greatly impact Standard's ability to realize that this is a financially feasible project for them. Absolutely.
And that will likely happen, but as we know, anytime you're dealing with the federal government or any bureaucracy of any size, things change.
Yeah.
We have a presidential election before us, new administration, new policies. I mean, a lot can happen.
Yeah.
What
But they didn't say, no, I'll say this, they didn't say that they wouldn't. It would just be more difficult and challenging to get going.
Okay. And I'm assuming and just for the record, for anybody from the viewing public that may be looking at this change is not as a result of anything that this housing authority has done or the Board of Commissioners has done. It's a change in policy from HUD at the national level based on legal things that have transpired since our application was first submitted. So that being said, I'm sure other agencies are in very similar predicaments. Have you heard from any other agencies about what their plans are, what they're thinking, how their development partners might possibly be shifting, or?
So, HUD convened 2 different meetings, office hour meetings, with the RAD office. And the biggest concern was the time that was spent, the money that was invested to get the plan to where it was, the resident engagement, which can be a challenge depending on the size of your PHA. I haven't spoken specifically to another housing authority that is in a similar situation, but we were all on that same call and hearing those same questions about, okay, well, our residents didn't complain, but, you know, we're still having a pivot. Okay, we get it. Now, what is HUD going to do to help us move us, you know, to where we need to be? And that, to be honest, is, I think, should be a part of our follow-up strategy as it relates to HUD, this decision being made not at any, you know, not in, as a result of anything that we did or did not do, and what can be done outside of, you know, the best practices, resources, specifically financial resources, because this is creating a larger burden on the agency. I think that definitely should probably be part of our follow-up and part of our ask strategy.
I mean, has anything been mentioned in regard to potential, like, thoughts as to where this budget shortfall is going to come from? I mean, if we have to, I don't know, are we looking for money from grants? Are we looking for money from private industry? Are we looking for, I mean, has there been any, I mean, that's a big shortfall for an agency our size to come up with, even on the smaller end. That's a lot. So we obviously have to get this off the ground. We have to move forward. I mean, we've been talking about doing a conversion for years now. Mm-hmm. This is not something that anybody anticipated, expected, or caused, but the path forward, there's a bunch of hurdles. Right. Even if HUD's trying to, you know, do what they can to help facilitate.
Yeah, and Commissioner Woods, Commissioner Bailey, and I had the opportunity to attend the Louisiana Housing Corporation's housing conference this week, and timeliness, I guess, of it all is a good thing. So we did have an opportunity again to meet with Standard and also just in terms of our conversations as it relates to this matter, coming to the board, making sure that at this next meeting we have parts of that strategy to, to support those asks, so that we're prepared to have those conversations, I think is critical. One, avenue could potentially be LHC, Louisiana Housing Corporation, through whatever gap financing applications or grants or programs that they may have. One avenue could potentially be any community stakeholders, nonprofits, chodos, just organizations that, again, we are in a more difficult position, but there could potentially be opportunities to leverage the situation with HUD, with LHC, the state, and any local partners that we can get to. From the
And
business.
obviously, the sooner we act, the better in regard to that, because there's other agencies in the state that are going to be looking probably at similar pots.
Possibly.
Yeah.
All right, any additional questions?
Yeah, just comments. To answer your question, funding sources, all of the above,
Right?
everything. And I'm thinking, yes, we do need to move as quickly as possible, as you were saying, to qualify and define what those numbers are. And we can strategize as to what the next move and what our ask amount is going to be, who we ask, when we have something hard in our hands and define that, we can make those presentations. I have to say, it is very difficult for me to let go of this voluntary streamline conversion. Even as recently as this morning, finishing up this conference, I'm in there talking to people and asking and whatever, we're not going to give up, but it looks like we're going to have to make this pivot, unfortunately. And I'll say I still think it's doable. The money is out there. I think it's going to be incumbent on us to make the convincing presentation with numbers that define, so people can kind of see where we are and by the numbers where we're trying to get. We discussed some ways that, and we'll talk further as maybe in our special meeting, that our parish government may be able to assist us. I mean, local industry is really supportive of community things. I'm thinking when we get our act together and can make a numbers, vision, and all of that presentation to it, I think that we're going to be able to come up with the sources, just us understanding what we're going to pivot to and then what those number shortfalls are.
All right, and Mr. Jackson, you said we need to have a special meeting prior to our...
I would suggest it because HUD, when we were notified of the application hold, no one specifically said, we need to know your answer by this date. But it was a few weeks, and it was 3 weeks, then 2 weeks, then 1 week, then twice this week that we've gotten follow-up conversations about what's the decision. So we probably should, prior to the November meeting, convene, at the board's pleasure, of course,
Is there?
to have that conversation and ultimately decide which way to go.
So probably sometime the week of the 11th through the 15th.
Okay.
Is there going to be, and unfortunately things come up, I missed the last one, another virtual RAD Section 18 blend kind of?
The office hours?
Yeah, office hours. I guess
I'll check with Kier.
And I
Who's been
guess
our point of
as
contact.
much as we can get in there, we'll understand what that program is in that process. So if there's something else coming up prior to our meeting, it'd be good to be involved in that.
I'll ask. And I'll see if they can set something up for us.
Just to kind of explain
Yeah,
to us
yeah. Yeah.
what we're pivoting into.
That could be a follow-up for, Andy.
Yeah, okay, all
email.
right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So then have we,
Go ahead.
we're gonna come up with, we haven't chosen a date for that special meeting, did we,
If you want to,
I mean, if you need more time
we'll
to
have
figure,
Mr. Jackson, check with, council secretary to see the availability of, the council chambers, and then we'll decide on a date.
okay.
All right. Any other matters before us this evening? Any additional comments or questions? All right, at this time, I'll open up one last time for public comments. Seeing no one present for public comment, public comments is closed. Do we have a motion from the board? Mr. Woods.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we adjourn our meeting.
All right, Mr. Woods has moved to adjourn the meeting. Do we have a second? Ms. Diggs.
Chair, second.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Cast your vote. All right, that passes. The time is 7:06. We are adjourned.